What's up everyone, Dav here from My Automation Tips. Today I'm going to talk about 3 different ways of duplicating items and why you might want to use them. So obviously in Monday, the most basic way of duplicating items is selecting the item and then clicking duplicate. But usually one of the benefits of Monday is that you can automate this process. The first way we're going to look at is the actual duplicate function that Monday has built into their automation. So we're going to go to the automate button in the top right corner of the screen. So we're going to create a new custom automation. And we're going to choose status. Actually, you know what? We're going to choose date to change it up a little bit. So in our first trigger menu, we are going to click on that, and then we are going to say when date arrives. Under the when, we're just going to leave it as is, so we can just click outside the box onto the date drop down. And then when we click on that, we're going to choose our repeat date. And so that's our trigger here. And then for our action, we're going to search duplicate. And then we're going to create that. And that's the simplest way of creating a duplication automation. The challenge with that is when you duplicate an item in Monday, I will take this recurring task 1 copy. You will see that it adds an additional copy. So if I duplicate items, you can see it now says copy, copy. And if I was to duplicate it again, it creates copy, copy, copy. So you can see how this will quickly become overwhelming and not necessarily the most useful thing. However, there is a use for that. And that's if you have dependencies. So if you have used a dependency column, you can keep the dependency to one item by using the duplicate function. So I'll give you an example here. So if we go to the 3 dots next to the name of the column that you want to place it at, and then we're going to go add column to the right. And then from more columns at the bottom of the available options, we are going to search dependency in the search bar. Then we're going to select dependency and click add to board. Now this just has a create date that is dependent. We're going to reset this. So our child item is dependent on something from the parent item. So we're going to connect the two by selecting parent item, and that makes the child item dependent on the parent item. Right now it's only on the create date though, so what happens is if I select this date, and then I put 26 over here, the automation is automatically created. I change the date over here to 27th. Going to automatically change the August 26th to the 28th. If I create another item, another child item, so I'll just create child item 2. By default, it clearly is not linked to that item, right? If I duplicate this item though, you can see that it's still tied to the parent item. And so if I change this over to the 30th, it will change the date for the 2 dependent items. The second way of duplicating items, which I probably use more often and is requested more often, is actually by using the create item in board. So to do this, we're going to go into the automate button in the top right corner of the screen. Then we're going to select add new automation. Then in our drop down, we can set our trigger, whatever we want. So we can say, in this case, status. And from the status drop down, we're going to select our item status. And then from the something menu or drop down, we're going to select done. And this is where the magic happens. In the action menu, you're going to search up create. Obviously, you have a lot of options here. You can create item in board. Under the board drop down, we're going to select the board that we're in, which is our leaderboard. Then for our item, the one thing we don't want to duplicate, and it's the same if you use the duplicate function, you want to be mindful of this. You don't want to use a status, because otherwise it will just keep duplicating itself over and over again. So we're going to uncheck the status, which is the trigger to our automation. Then we're going to click done. And then we're going to create automation. Close the little window, pressing the X in the top right corner of the screen. Alright, and now if I take one of my child items, actually, so you can see the dependency issue as well, I'm going to switch this one to done. And you can see the child item copy is recreated with exactly the same name, but it doesn't add the copy at the end of it. So this is really nice if you want to create recurring tasks that are automatically regenerated every month, and so forth. We're going to reset. The last way I want to talk about duplicating item is actually going to apply to the parent item in this case. So let's say we have this working on it, and we have this in New York, and we have some other data on the right-hand side. We're actually not going to keep the duplicated item. We're only going to use it to create an archive of it. The way we do that is by going to the automate function in the top right corner of the screen. Add a new automation. So for the trigger, we're going to select status change. Usually I would put it to a date so it has a recurrence. But in this case, just so we can demonstrate it, we're just going to use a status. So we're going to say when the status changes to stuck. This is our trigger for our action. The action drop down, we're going to select duplicate the item. But then we also want to reset the parent item, because that's where the connection of the child item is connected to. So we're going to say change status. So our main status, we're going to set it to working on it. Our date, we're going to set the create date to today. And we're going to set the due date to today, but we're going to push the due date. Let's say 5 days. Now it's important in this automation specifically that you either have a trigger for other automation that resets it, or that in the automation itself you reset the fields that you want. Once you've done that, you can click the create button, bottom left corner of the screen. Now I'm just going to add one so it doesn't keep duplicating in circles. So now if I take my parent item and I change it to stuck, it's going to reset that item. Okay, so you can see it duplicated the item. It changed the status of our original parent item. The create date is set to today. The due date is set to today plus 5 days. So that was our conditions in our automation. Now again, the reason you want to do that is so that any child item that's duplicated is also still tied to your parent item. Additionally to that though is I want to make sure I archive this. What I will do then is set another automation that when an item is created, and the status is whatever my conditional status is. In this case, it's stuck. Then move item, we can use a group. And we're going to move it down to the other group. We're going to reset this. Alright, so here's our parent item, here's our child item. Let's say the date comes, or in this case I'm going to change the status to stuck. It's going to duplicate the item, and then move it down to the other group. You can see the status changed to working on it. The create date got set to today, the due date got set to today plus 5 days. But before that, it got duplicated the way that it was. So it duplicates it first, and then it resets your item. And that gives you a full archive of that item. And since we put another automation that when the item is created and the status is stuck, to then move down to the other group. Give it a minute, and that automation is probably going to kick in. There we go. And so then our archived item is down at the bottom here. And next month comes along. Go in here, change it to stuck. Duplicates the item, resets it. All that good stuff. All the sub items get created, and the item gets moved down. And it keeps rolling around like that. So that's it for me for that video. 3 different ways of duplicating your items with automation. Hopefully that was helpful. Test it out. If you have some other cool ways, please share them. And if you have any ideas of what you want to see, feel free to leave a comment, and I'll do my best to tackle those on. Alright, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.